Hello and welcome to Invisible Walls, episode 240. My name is Marcus Beer, and joining me today is Ryan Stevens.
Hello, everyone.
Miguel Mustachio Lopez.
Hi.
And Mike Dangerous Damiani.
Brr. There you go. In the wild.
He said his catchphrase.
All right, let's crack straight on into the news. It's been an up and down week. There's been some interesting stuff. Breaking this morning, Thursday, Grand Theft Auto moves to September. Fanboys all over the world are crying.
Well, we had like kind of a tentative spring sort of thing. Like there were some leaks on Amazon, so I don't think anyone's really that surprised that it got pushed a couple more months. That seems to be kind of what happens with big games these days.
And it happens with Rockstar, especially. I mean, they do, they go by the mantra of they'll release it when it's ready, and it'll not affect sales. The interesting thing, obviously, on the internet and Twitter in particular, is that, is this a indicator that they're going to release next-gen versions?
Yeah, it is going to be post E3, but I mean, I think, they could split it. I think they could, right? Like a lot of people develop their assets at higher definitions, and they could re-release it. But it is kind of this is a tempest in a teapot for video games. This is this and the Modern Warfare games are what sell very well.
Right.
So it is kind of interesting, like I guess from a business standpoint, if they would kind of split the base, and who knows how these next consoles are going to sell. I wouldn't put strong money that it will be a next-gen game though, or like have a lot of next-gen features.
I'm wondering how much of this is also due to looking at the profits, as it were, and the quarterly reporting. I mean, we know that 2K Take-Two have BioShock coming in March, and that's going to do very well. We are expecting, and then for them to have a game that dominates the holiday season in Grand Theft Auto, that makes sense to move it into the next fiscal year. I mean, it might just be purely a business decision. The game is almost ready to go, and they're just holding it off until after the summer slump.
It also raises an interesting question in that, like, how many of these games that have been announced but don't have firm release dates for this year are actually next-gen games that the publishers wanted to announce, but they couldn't specifically say what platform they're for because the platform holders have been more reticent than they have been in the past?
Yeah, I mean, when we were looking at our game preview stuff, I mean, it was true. A lot of this stuff was following in the first 6 months. I think GTA and Last of Us were kind of the last couple things. Well, Last of Us finally got a solid release date, and it was a little more nebulous with GTA. But then there's things like, Star Wars 1313. Who knows what's going on there? But like Watch Dogs, there was always that debate. Like, yeah, it's going to be on current stuff, and we're starting to like. I know, of course, I love Dark Souls, but they were saying like when the Edge magazine guys got to see Dark Souls, they were seeing it running on a laptop.
Yeah.
But they were like, this looks right up there.
Right.
Star Wars
And
13,
recent
13.
news that Dark Souls 2 is only 25% complete. I believe Edge reported that as well. Mm-hmm. Dragon Age, yet another one who is kind of just like teetering toward the end of the year. I suspect that a lot of this stuff that we're talking about now is actually next-gen stuff.
And it's interesting because, we're so used to like history kind of repeating itself, and then when it changes, everyone's like shocked. But, it was like, Nintendo ruled for 2 generations, and then Sony ruled for 2 generations. But now we have, like, you can make all these arguments, but it's a much more equal market share than it's ever been before, But there's this kind of like idea that we really don't know. There's leaks all over the place, but this is if the consoles launch in 2013, the new Xbox and new PlayStation 3. This is going to be the shortest amount of lead time, public lead time, ever. Everything else had
2 years or 18 months.
At least announcements ahead of time, official like acknowledgement of stuff beyond like the most baseline. We're working on something.
Well, the game has changed, if you excuse the pun. I mean, now with Twitter, Facebook, social media, everything is deliverable instantly to your smartphone. You can get your news on the go. I mean, we know traditional media has been dying out. Broadcast is taking a hit. The magazines and the newspapers, they're taking a hit. And
I think cable.
Yeah, I think going back to the point about announcing but not tacking on whether it be next gen or not. I mean, obviously the big companies, they are publicly traded. They do have to announce products at a certain time to bump up investor confidence or bump up interest in their share price, I suppose. I just feel really sorry for whoever comes out within 2 or 3 weeks of Grand Theft Auto, because it's going to be one of those big ones. And again, it's going to be a big sales number for 2K in September, and God help anybody who's around that time. Other news, there's been some closures. Sorry, did you want to add something, Mike?
And the only thing I could ever add to that is the question, are we still convinced that these new platforms are 100% coming out this year? It seems that everyone's just assuming it's going to happen. I know there's been the teases and stuff, but going on that thing of like, it is a different day and age with social media, but that lead time for a new console is nuts. I can see that for a portable system. I just don't see for new hardware for a console.
Look, we know
I'm not saying it's not possible, but I remember someone saying that they thought, like, analysts were saying that like the next PlayStation will not be this year. It might be like first quarter of 2014 or something. So,
but I think we may see it at least, though.
Could these delays to fall be an indication that maybe that the next generation's coming this fall, but these companies are finding out it isn't happening, so we have that breathing space in the fall. Let's push some of our releases back to then.
Well,
that's something.
It could be. I mean, there is a huge countdown clock on the Microsoft website for E3. That is basically people have made a lot of that. People are making a lot of GDC. That Apple have their event that week, and now Microsoft and Sony are apparently going to be doing their events at GDC as well to announce something. I mean, if they do announce at GDC, we get our first hands-on at E3, and then they're in stores in September, October. It is a short lead time, but I think it's something that is feasible, and honestly, I cannot face the prospect of another year of playing on 360. Another holiday season.
You just can't bear it.
I really can't. I mean, it's
go to your PC.
I would go to my friggin' PC. I mean, the PlayStation, I can see the logic in that. I've said for a while it's got at least another year in it, possibly more. And I have no problems with some of the stuff coming out for the PS3. The 360, it's beginning to make me feel depressed when I look at it. Because
first world problem.
It is a first world problem totally. I mean, I played Devil May Cry on it and I really liked it, but I go back to my PC more and more because I'm the games that are coming out that like Crysis 3, like Far Cry 3, that are so much better on the eyes on the PC. They're where I expect the consoles to be now, and it would be nice to just go drop in and get started on a new console with some great graphics. But yeah, I think Microsoft. If Microsoft don't release a new console this year, we can forget about anything major from first party for them, and it'll be left to third party again. And the numbers will down last year, even though we had some good stuff. What's going to happen to them this year?
Do you have any more depressing news to drop on us?
Actually, I do. There's been some closures and some layoffs. Gas-powered games. Chris Taylor obviously had to lay off a bunch of people, and they're still pushing on with their Kickstarter, and that was last week, which is obviously very sad. Junction Point, which is Warren Spector's game studio, they got closed down by Disney. I can't imagine Warren will be out of a job for too long unless he's staying on with Disney in some way, shape, or form. But Disney have said that
they're moving to the digital-only space.
It's mobile games, it's Facebook games, and they're going to license.
I think Mickey 2 was pretty not good, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. We probably won't get that DuckTales game that Warren Spector was always teasing at. But it seems like they're putting all their eggs in the Disney Infinity basket.
You'll get DuckTales on the iPhone, maybe, if you're a good boy. But yeah, I mean, this is the thing. They've said from the get-go, especially with the Marvel stuff and with the Star Wars stuff, that they will license these properties out. Infinity is the way they want to go. Mobile is the way they want to go. And at least they've been honest about it, but it sucks for everybody at Junction Point who lost their job. I mean, that's just horrible. But not every bit of news today has been bad. Crytek have gone and hired a bunch of people from Vigil. Mm-hmm. They opened up Crytek Austin, and they got the studio head, I think it was, and about 30 or so other people so far.
Yeah, and I want to say just like, I have a lot of respect for Crytek and Epic, like how Epic went into big, huge games in Baltimore and opened up Epic Baltimore. And here's Crytek, they took... was it Free Radical? The guys who did Haze was awful. I won't defend Haze, but Time Splitters was a cool game, and they put those guys to work, and they're kind of expanding. And as we see places like publishers and developers kind of fall, it's nice to see these guys who are kind of bolstered by their engine sales being able to kind of, does Crytek actually license out that much? Well, whatever. But it's good to see that they are kind of expanding in a creative sense, and they're not just honing in, and we're not just getting to these kind of mega corporations, which publishers tended to kind of already be, but it's getting that way even more.
Well, it seems like I mean, the consequences that led to this was like one of the mid-tier publishers kind of, for whatever reason, just not being able to hack it in the market today. And yeah, it's funny that like it seems like it's like a series of other like small to mid-tier companies that snatched up all of the THQ properties. I think Ubisoft is the biggest.
Or Sega. Well, it's hard for me to gauge how big Sega is anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I would say
I would say Sega a mid-level.
Seems
Ubisoft
weird, right?
is the higher one. But I think it's great that that Crytek have done this, and like you said, like Epic did before. And I mean, it shows that there are and these companies are making great games. So hopefully they will be out of what was a horribly negative situation at THQ, where years of mismanagement, overspending, overextending themselves, not knowing their ass from their elbow, as I like to say. It really sort of like downed them. It'll be interesting to see. Darksiders is still floating around. I mean, nobody's bought the rights to that yet. So we'll see what happens with Darksiders 3, and what happens to that tech demo that's supposed to be awe-inspiring for Darksiders 3. But good news, at least some people have come out with this with some jobs. So, and I mean, generally when this sort of thing happens, it's the good people who get hired. It's the it's the ones who are the waste of space get thrown to the wayside.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you could say that fairly, right? Like these developers are really big, and a lot of the people who are perhaps like more recently hired or lower level, I would imagine, are the ones who don't get hired. Right? They hire key people.
Not necessarily. They pulled in 30 people at least. I don't know how big Visual was as a studio, but they're talking about hiring more, and now the Junction Point people are available as well. I mean, Austin's turning into a real sort of like center of excellence there in Texas.
I didn't know that Visual was in Austin too. Are they?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Okay, next up, segment Ryan likes to call housekeeping, which scared the crap out of me at first because I thought it meant we had to clean his office, but thankfully
My office is actually way cleaner.
It is way cleaner, but that's not saying much.
Usually we do this housekeeping stuff beginning of the show, end of the show, but there's just a couple more bigger things to kind of talk about. Just you may have seen, Mike works on Pop Fiction, and if you saw the last episode with General Leo, right, there was a nice little thing at the end.
Yeah, we have a schedule now. We've been promising that for quite a while. Finally decided on the dates, and it's the third Friday of every month. We actually posted on our social media places on Facebook and Twitter what those exact days are, because the third Friday thing's kind of weird.
Yeah, as we learned.
So we have specific dates. So the next one's February 15th. We'll start. It's actually being written right now. We'll have some like teasers for it very soon. But we also are going to do some supplementary content around the show. We have a new segment called Pop Facts, which are, we talked about doing the Easter eggs and kind of these like secrets in games that didn't necessarily have a myth around them. There was nothing really like to test out, want to make a full episode. We thought maybe it'd be cool to incorporate them into the full episode, but they're already pretty long as is, so let's just spin them off into their own cool little short videos. So those,
you can get your weekly dose kind of,
yes,
that kind of Pop Fiction feel.
We're going to get those to you soon, and they're going to be going up once a week. And once we have that schedule figured out, we will message that out to everybody. Those are coming along, and we also have some other things planned for it that are in the works, possibly a podcast, maybe a live stream to go along with it. So we're working that out. It's all coming pretty soon, and yeah, it's more Pop Fiction stuff.
And that's kind of the start of, we're just going to be, like, you guys are used to Invisible Walls coming up, going up on Friday, or if you're in Europe, I guess, really, really early Saturday, as we see in the comments. Just a quick, to address something real quick, we're working on getting those download links. Sorry about the commercial breaks, but c'est la vie. And I don't know if you guys saw Levels come back, and that's something we're going to do every Monday. And we're just generally going to start working on having way more shows here at GT and a lot more scheduled content. So if you come to GT every day, there's going to be something you want to watch, or hopefully you want to watch. So yeah, Level will be every week, and there's a bunch of other stuff that's being worked on that you haven't seen before, and some other stuff's kind of coming back. I know by the time you watch this, a blueprint should be up that Miguel was working on.
Yeah.
Mike mentioned streaming some stuff for Pop Fiction. We're also, we've done a couple live streaming stuff here. I think we've kind of gone over the test period, and I'm not going to make any announcements right now, but live streaming is going to be something that's going to be part of GT, and again, it's going to be something that you can get used to being at a certain time on a certain day. Hopefully, we're working on a lot of that stuff as well as our. For big games, you know, obviously we always try to hit those reviews. Hand it off to you in a second, but you know, we're also going to have a lot of supplemental material to go up with that. So for these big games, it's going to be more than a review. We're going to carry that conversation on, and there'll be cool, you know, not like cheats, but like, you know, we're working on like a weapons guide right now for like Dead Space 3. So, you know,
doesn't that involve just swiping your credit card?
Ooh, well, that's another piece. I'm working on a nickel and DLC'd, but we'll figure that one out. But on the review kick, you know, Miguel's our reviews editor, and there's going to be some changes that you're going to see pretty soon. I'm going to just pass it off to you, if that's cool.
Yeah. You know, basically the thing you're going to notice first is that we're losing the categories, like the individual ratings. We're not going to break down our reviews into story, design, gameplay, and presentation anymore. They're just going to be essentially more free-flowing. We're going to, rather than sort of make every game review adhere to the format we have, we're just kind of going to switch the review format to kind of encompass what the games are like, you know. For some games, sure, it makes sense to tackle it in the sort of boilerplate that we had, but there are other games where you don't necessarily, in a critique or a review, you don't necessarily want to start with story. You don't necessarily want to talk about kind of what design was like the game structure, you know, like all the sort of disparate parts that are in it. Like, yeah, the general idea with this is to kind of approach each game on its own merits and let what the game is about dictate how we write about it and how we tackle it in a review. So that's basically the change. We're getting rid of the categories, and we're no longer assigning individual ratings to the categories. We're still going to have the final overall rating, of course, and it's going to be the same as it was before. It's going to be, you know, on a 100-point scale. And yeah, I mean, our hope is that this is kind of going to free us up to maybe tackle these games in a more personal way, in a way that will reflect less about how we think it falls into, you know, this predetermined category, and more about how we ourselves reacted to it. And, you know, to supplement that, we're going to also be including bylines in our reviews. You're going to know, I mean, I know a lot of the times we will come into Invisible Walls and talk about the games we reviewed, but oftentimes we didn't. Oftentimes the reviewer wasn't available for the podcast. Oftentimes a game probably didn't rate highly enough in the show schedule to be included in here. So yeah, now every review you're going to know who wrote it, and you're hopefully going to be able to get a feel for what that person's interests are and what they sort of value in games. And
for, you know, for the people that watched the depths for DMC, you know, it's also going to open. I think everyone was, for the most part, kind of on the same boat with Devil May Cry, but you know, it's also going to be another place where we can have more of a dissenting opinion.
Sure, yeah.
And you know, so that can also happen here in IW, but in a larger scale. You know, I loved EGM back in the day, where you saw 3 opinions, right, and you were able to kind of side with someone.
Right.
Did you ever write for EGM?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably read some of your stuff. But you know, that was cool, and I think it's just kind of about keeping a conversation going.
I think that you touched on it with Invisible Walls. I mean, we're going to get away from regurgitating the review score when we're talking about games. And, you know, when you come to Invisible Walls and we're going to talk about a game, it's going to be beyond the review. So it's not, you know, you may not get the 20-minute discussions that we've had before, perhaps, on things, unless it's something really, really mega. But you will still get game discussion, but it's not going to be lather, rinse, repeat. And I also have a bit of news. Annoyed Gamer is moving from a Wednesday to a Saturday. And when does that start? Tomorrow. So yeah, you get 2 Annoyed Gamers this week. So yes, tune in tomorrow for the episode where I go a little bit bananas on Visceral Games. I'm sure their fanboys will love that one.